Hi guys, today's lesson is lesson 93. It is called Equations with Quadratics. A quadratic equation is an equation containing a variable with an exponent of 2. If the exponent is anything other than the number 2, then it is not a quadratic equation. So here's an example, x squared equals 25. How would I solve for this? Well, the opposite of squaring something is to take the square root of both sides. So the square root of x squared is x, and the square root of 25 is actually two answers. So it can be plus 5, or it could be minus 5. If you think about why that's true, remember if I square something, that means to multiply it by itself. So if x is 5, x squared would be 5 squared, and 5 times 5 is 25. But x squared could also be negative 5, and if I square negative 5, I have a negative times a negative, which results in a positive. So you will most commonly see this answer written as x equals plus or minus 5. Okay, it's really important that you remember that it has two solutions. All right, here's another one, 2x squared plus 7 equals 25. So how do I know it's a quadratic? Well, it has an x squared right here. If I want to solve for x, I'm going to start by ignoring it, right? The first thing I'm going to do is subtract 7 from both sides. So on the left-hand side, I'm left with 2x squared, and on the right-hand side, I'm left with 18. Sorry, I had to check my math there. All right, so now how do I get x by itself? Well, first I need to divide by 2. So I'm left with x squared equals 9. And I'm still not quite done yet. I have x squared is 9. How do you undo a square? You're going to take the square root of both sides. The square root of x squared is x, and the square root of 9 is plus or minus 3. All right, here's another one. 2x squared equals 24. I know this is a quadratic because it has an x squared. I'm going to start by dividing by 2. I get x squared equals 12. I'm going to square root both sides. The square root of 12 is not a perfect number. So this is when I prime factor. 12 is like 4 and 3, which is like 2 and 2. So now I'm with all of my primes. If I rewrite this, it's like the square root of 2 times 2 times 3. Find my partners here. This is square root 4. This is square root 3. I know the square root of 4 is 2, and the square root of 3 is an ugly number, right? So this is my simplified answer. The square root of x squared is just x. So in this one, x equals plus or minus 2 times the square root of 3. All right, let's do a few more examples, and you can check your answers along the way. All right, example 1 is 2x squared plus 3 equals 5. All right, step 1 to solve that, cover up this. I want to subtract 3 from both sides. So I get 2x squared equals 2. Divide by 2. X squared equals 1. Take the square root of both sides to undo the square. So the square root of x squared is x. The square root of 1 is plus or minus 1. All right, number 2, negative 5x squared plus 10 equals negative 20. I start by covering up my variable. So I'm going to subtract 10 from both sides. So I get negative 5x squared equals negative 30. Divide by negative 5. X squared equals 6. Square root both sides. So x equals plus or minus the square root of 6. The square root of 6 cannot be simplified any further. All right, number 3 is a different way to write things. 8 over x equals x over 2. So how do I turn this into a quadratic, or how do I solve for x? Remember, we can cross multiply. So x times x is x squared. and 8 times 2 is 16. So x squared equals 16. Square root both sides. To simplify 16, I'm going to prime factor it. I get 8 and 2. 8 can be made with 4 and 2, and 4 is 2 and 2. So here I have, oh, that was silly. That was a long way to do. Square root of 16 is 4. We already knew that. All right, anyways, x equals plus or minus 4. All right, let's do one more like that. And you can try lesson practice in your book if you need some more examples. So x over 6 equals 2 over x. Again, I'm going to cross multiply. So I get x times x is x squared. 6 times 2 is 12. How do I undo the square? Take the square root of both sides. If I want to simplify 12, I'm going to prime factor that. 4 and 3, 2 and 2. Rewrite square root of 12 as the square root of 2 times 2 times 3. Here's my pair, so square root 4, square root of 3, the square root of 4 is 2, the square root of 3 comes along for the ride. So here I get x equals plus or minus 2 times the square root of 3. All right, if you would like some more practice doing those, please check out lesson practice in your textbook on page 626. See you later.